The first thing you need to do is download .NET 8.0. Follow the link in the description and it will bring you to this download page and start the download immediately. Choose the download location if you have that enabled and then find the file where it downloaded. Double-click the downloaded file and follow the installation wizard's instructions until it's installed. To double-check that it is installed, go to the search bar, type in Control Panel and open it. Click on Uninstall Program and in the new menu, scroll until you see the program Microsoft Windows Desktop Runtime 8.0.15x64. Close out and then follow the next link in the description to download Charm and the D2 Blender importer. Choose the install location and then save the charm latest.zip file there. Do the same with the D2 Blender importer.zip. Be aware of the disclaimer and readme of Charm. This is not a data mining tool or a tool to find and post spoilers. This is a tool solely for the purpose of helping 3D artists, content preservation, and learning how the game works. Now, go to the location in which you installed Charm and unzip it. Make sure that it extracts into a new folder and not into the folder it is in. Double-click on the charm.exe file to open Charm. Click More Info and then Run Anyway to open Charm. This is the settings configuration menu of Charm. Here is where you can change the version of the game you want to extract from. Change the game version to Edge of Fate or whatever the latest version of the game is. It will always be listed as the current expansion's name, i.e. Edge of Fate Renegades. As I'm making this video in Edge of Fate, I will put it at Edge of Fate. It will then bring a pop-up that requires you to select your package's path. This is where your game is installed, typically at C, Program Files, x64, Steam, CMapS, Common, Destiny 2 packages. I have mine installed on another drive, so my path is different. If you downloaded the game through Epic Games or the Microsoft Store, the path is different. I have a video that goes over how to access the Microsoft Store area to find the game files, and you should be able to find the Epic Games game install location through right-clicking the game on the Epic Games library. Once you select the packages path, it will take a bit to load in, and once it does, you can then select the export path. Create a new folder if you don't already have one for Charm exports, and then confirm. Another disclaimer will appear when Charm loads into its main menu. Read it and then accept the usage terms. Again, this is a tool for 3D artists, content preservation, and learning, not for leaking new content or violating Bungie's terms of service. Now you're able to extract the armor or weapons you want. Click on the API button underneath the models section. This will take a little bit to load in, so once it's loaded in, you're able to see all the player items. Things like armor ornaments, armor, weapons, weapon ornaments, ghost shells, ships, and sparrows. Here I'm selecting the armor for my Titan. And note how I'm using the search bar to find items. It's much easier to do it this way than to scroll through each individual line. Some items will have more than just one item, like Peregrine Greaves. This is because of reissued armor or weapons. Peregrine Greaves has 3 different icons because of Armor 1.0, Armor 2.0, and Armor 3.0, 3.0 being the latest armor stat changes. Whichever one you pick doesn't matter as they all have the same mesh. Now, I'm picking the shaders that I want on my armor. When you have selected enough items, they'll overflow in the second page. This is just a visual thing, it doesn't affect the extraction process at all. Turn on aggregate output so that the armor is exported into its own folder together. Shaders won't be put into that folder and will be extracted into their own folders like so. Now we move into Blender. Make sure you're on the latest version of Blender. For me, that is Blender 4.5. You can download Blender through Steam, as it auto-updates to the latest version whenever it's released, though you can also download Blender from Blender Foundation's website. It's a free program, so just download and install it and then launch it. I already have it installed through Steam, so I'm just going to cancel the download. The first thing we need to do is install the Destiny 2 Blender importer. If you already have it installed, uninstall it to prevent any issues when updating. Just in case, this is an optional step. And then go to the top right corner, click on the down arrow and select Install from Disk. Navigate to where you downloaded the D2 Blender Importer.zip and select it and click Install. Once you do that, drop down to Add-ons and check to see that it's installed and the correct version. My version says 1.4.5 as that was the version I used during this video. Yours should be higher than that, and if it's not, re-download it from the Charm Releases link in the description again, or make sure that you installed the correct file. Now it's time to set up the model. Follow along closely. Delete the cube, light, and camera from default scene, and then go to File, Import, and at the bottom select Destiny Importer. In the new window, navigate to where you exported your character files and select all of them and click Import.cfg. It'll take a few seconds, but your character appears in the scene orange. This means it has a player gear shader on it already. Now that your character is in, select the essential bone to highlight all the armatures and then click delete to remove them. We will be importing a different one later. Now this is something that I do to make it easier, and that is to separate the male and female armor. I create 2 new collections and name them Mask and Femme. I then search for Femme and shift select the first and last meshes and then drag and drop them into the Femme collection. I do the same with Mask and then delete the extra collections. To save the collection you're not using for me, I'm disabling Femme as my Titan is Mask. Time for armor shaders. Like I said previously, the player gear shader is already applied to the armor. Set the viewport to the material preview, and after loading in, the armor will show with default armor colors. Note how Peregrine Greaves has some weird textures and aren't glowing, and that the helmet only has flat emission where the weird lightning stuff should usually be in game. Those will be messed with later. Right now, we're going to apply the shaders we ripped with armor to the armor. Grab the top right corner of the viewport and drag to the left to create a new area and set it to the shader editor. What you now see is the player gear shader. Now, to change the armor shader away from the default, open up the scripting tab, click open and navigate to your charm export folder and the shader you extracted. Click on the underscore armor for if you ripped armor. If you ripped a weapon, select the underscore weapon. Select open text and then click the play button at the top of the area. Move back to the layout tab and you'll see the armor piece you had selected had changed color to the shader you wanted. If it didn't, don't worry, I'll cover that soon. Since I had Paragon Greaves selected when I ran it, it changed the Lunar Halcyon Guilt shader. That's not the shader I wanted on it, so I'll change it back to the Paragon Greaves shader. I'll select the chest and change it to the Lunar Halcyon Guilt shader. If your armor didn't change shaders, click the N key to open up a side menu and select the D2 shader tab and click the Generate Shader button at the top. The shader being generated will be named above the button. If this is the case, it's still the Lunar Halcyon Guilt shader. Blender will buffer for a second, but the shader will be applied. Now I'll change the shaders on each of my armor. Turns out I forgot the shader I used for my Paragon Greaves. I'll grab that quickly. I used him to figure out what shaders and armor I use on my character, though you can also use the transmog screen in Destiny 2. I agree output doesn't matter here as it's a shader, but I'll turn it off anyway. I'll apply it to the greaves and finish up with prismatic expanse on my mark. Note how where it was once nice and bright, it's all black with some plain iridescence. This happens with shaders that rotate between colors, the most common being Emission or have any sort of animation. This is fairly complicated stuff, so I'll leave out my struggles with it and finish up cleaning the model. Now we'll get on to dealing with the Paragon Greaves knee stuff. What you'll need for this is the Destiny 2 Emission shader for Blender. I'll leave a link to it in the description. All of the Destiny 2 Blender shaders available on the Judd Subs Gumroad are free, and you only have to pay if you want to support him. Download it and save it to wherever you keep your Destiny stuff. In my case, I'll save it to my Destiny ripping folder. Back in Blender, File Append, and then navigate to the Mission Shader.blend file. Double click it and pick Material and then the Warlock Bond shader. With Mesh selected, change it to the Warlock Bond shader material. Copy the diffuse from the main armor and paste it into the Warlock Bond shader material. Delete the old diffuse texture node that's in there and replace its connection with a pasted one. Now it's bright and emissive, just like how it should be. Check to make sure the material render method is set to blended and you're good. For the crystal bits on the legs, I'll just do something quick and dirty that still looks good. For the helmet, that's a lot more complicated. I've done it once before already, so I'll just set that up later. For now, I'll just remove the Emission connection and set it to blue. Cloth meshes get ripped 4 at a time. 2 of them have the proper transparency stuff, and 2 of them are high quality. You'll need to find the one that has both. Here, I'll lay them out, and you can see how 2 of them look bad with dangling lights, and the 2 of them look good. I'll check the vertex count and see which ones are the highest. I'll delete the 2 that don't have the transparency enabled, delete one of the remaining 2 that has a lower vertex count. Press the Alt and G keys to get it back to its original position at 0, 0, 0, and now it looks good. I set the color away from prismatic expanse to see the differences better, but I'll set it back now. Finally, we will apply the player skeleton to the model. I will include a link to the player skeleton in the description, but you can also find it in the Google Drive under the _tutorials folder. Download it and place it in the folder with everything else. To extract the player skeleton, we will need either 7-zip or WinRAR. I'm downloading 7-zip because it's free and I've used it more than WinRAR, so I know how it works. Download installer, go through the installation wizard, and then when it's finished, go back to where the player skeleton is downloaded. Right-click the file, hover down to extract the 2 skeletons plus hands. This will extract it to its own folder, and now we go back to Blender. In Blender, file append like we did for the Warlock Bond shader, and navigate to the new D2 skeleton and hands folder. Double-click into it, and then the collection section, and then select the skeleton type you want. Female and male are self-explanatory, but IK and FK is where people get messed up. IK stands for inverse kinematics, and use handles to move parts of a skeleton. To move an arm, you move the handle on the hand, or on the handle on the foot to move the leg. FK stands for forward kinematics, and is usually what you'd expect of a skeleton. The bones directly affect the area they're positioned in, and to move an arm, you have to move each of the bones individually. I suggest looking up more information on IK and FK, especially if you're going to do animation. For now, I'll select the male IK rig, and you'll see the skeleton, which is a bunch of fancy lines and shapes, appear over the armor. You'll also notice that we have hands now. Off to the side, there's a blob of a bunch of wires and shapes. Delete that, we don't need it. Now, back on armor, select the skeleton and then click A to select everything else. A selects everything in a scene, so if you have stuff other than just the armor, click B and then draw a box with armor to select just the armor. Right click to pull up the context menu and go down to Parent Armature Deform, or Control P Armature Deform. They perform the same action. I'll also mention here that if you select anything other than Armature Deform, you'll mess up the weights and cause things to not be properly weighted, or not weighted at all. Deselect everything by clicking off and then reselect the skeleton, go into pose mode, and then now you can select any of the handles and see how the armor moves with it. If done correctly, it should move similarly to mine. The boxes on the hands and feet move them, and the spherical handles at the knees and elbows are what moves them in the direction of the handle. Congratulations, you have now created your Destiny 2 character in Blender.